There is something stirring inside you right now. You may not have a name for it yet. You may not be able to point to a specific moment or a specific face, but somewhere beneath the surface of your daily life, something is shifting. A quiet unease has settled in your chest like a stone dropped into still water, and the ripples are moving outward in every direction. You feel it when a certain name crosses your mind. You feel it when a particular voice reaches your ears. You feel it when someone who has been absent for a season suddenly reappears with warmth and sweetness that feels almost too deliberate, almost too perfectly timed. That feeling is not anxiety. That feeling is not paranoia. That feeling is a divine signal, and the God who created the universe is using it to get your attention before something arrives that could cost you everything. You are not here by accident. The fact that you pressed play on this message, the fact that these words are landing in your ears at this precise moment in your life, is not a coincidence. Heaven does not operate on coincidence. Heaven operates on precision. Every word you are about to receive has been prepared for you, selected for you, and delivered to you because God saw what was approaching your life before you had any idea it was coming. He saw the conversation that is forming. He saw the request that is being rehearsed. He saw the person who is preparing to walk toward you with a smile that does not quite reach their eyes, and before any of it could reach you, He positioned this message in your path. That is how loved you are. That is how seriously heaven takes your assignment. God will interrupt the ordinary rhythm of your day to make sure you are equipped before the moment arrives. Beloved, you are a chosen one. You were not placed on this earth to simply survive the schemes of others. You were not placed here to be a stepping stone for people who see your anointing as a resource to exploit. You were placed here to fulfill a purpose so specific, so irreplaceable, that the enemy has spent years studying the best way to reach you. And the most effective strategy he has ever found is not a stranger. It is someone you trust. It is someone whose number is still saved in your phone. It is someone who knows your history, who has sat at your table, who has heard your prayers. The request that is coming will not arrive from an unfamiliar face. It will arrive wrapped in familiarity, in shared memories, in a voice that used to bring you comfort. And that is exactly why you need to be ready. There is a stirring in the spiritual realm that surrounds your life right now. Something is being rearranged. Something is being repositioned. And in the middle of that divine rearrangement, God is asking you to pay attention. Not with fear, not with suspicion toward everyone around you, but with the kind of clarity that comes from being deeply connected to the voice of the one who sees all things. You have been walking through a season of preparation, though it may not have looked like preparation from the outside. It may have looked like loss. It may have looked like isolation. It may have looked like doors closing and relationships fading and plans unraveling. But every single thing that has been stripped away was stripped away with purpose. God has been clearing the field of your life so that when this moment arrives, there is nothing in the way between you and your discernment. Think about the path that led you here, the nights you spent questioning your own judgment, the times you gave and gave and gave only to watch someone take without ever offering anything in return. The relationships you held on to long past their season because you did not want to be the one who let go. You have been trained through pain, shaped through disappointment, and refined through every experience that felt like abandonment but was actually alignment. Every one of those moments was building something inside you. Every tear you cried in the dark was watering a root of wisdom that is now beginning to bear fruit. You are not the same person you were 2 years ago. You are not even the same person you were 6 months ago. God has been doing a deep work in you, and that deep work has been preparing you for this exact moment. The request that is coming will feel familiar. It will use the language of relationship. It will invoke shared history. It may even invoke the name of God, wrapping itself in spiritual language to bypass your defenses. But something in you will know. Something in you will hesitate. Something in you will feel the slight misalignment between the words being spoken and the spirit behind them. That is not doubt. That is discernment. And discernment is one of the most powerful gifts God has ever placed inside a chosen one. It is the ability to know what you know before you can explain what you know. It is the inner compass that points true north even when everything around you is designed to make you question your own direction. Right now, before that conversation happens, before that message arrives, before that familiar voice reaches your ears with that carefully constructed request, God is sealing something in your spirit. He is fortifying your boundaries. He is sharpening your perception. He is reminding you that you have the right, and in fact the divine responsibility to say no. Not every request deserves a yes. Not every need that is placed before you is yours to meet. Not every hand extended in your direction is extended with clean intentions. And the sooner you internalize that truth, the safer your destiny becomes. You carry something rare. You carry an anointing that not everyone around you can see, but that something in the spirit world recognizes immediately. That is why you have always been a target. That is why certain people are drawn to you not out of genuine love, but out of an unconscious awareness that being near you opens doors for them. They may not even fully understand why they need you in their corner. They only know that life seems to move differently when you are involved. Doors open, things shift, favor shows up, and because they have observed this pattern, they return, sometimes with genuine affection, sometimes with an agenda disguised as affection. And your assignment right now is to know the difference. Do not let the urgency of someone else's request become the override code for your own peace. Do not let the guilt of past connection silence the wisdom of present discernment. You are allowed to love people from a distance. You are allowed to honor a history without reopening a door that God Himself closed. You are allowed to be kind and still be firm. You are allowed to care and still say no. These are not contradictions. These are the marks of someone who has grown into the fullness of their calling. Take a moment right now and place your hand on your heart. Feel it beating. That heartbeat is a declaration from heaven that your assignment is not finished. Everything that has been sent against you, every scheme, every manipulation, every carefully crafted request designed to pull you off course has failed. You are still here. You are still standing. And you are still covered. If you feel this word landing in your spirit right now, if something inside you is saying yes, if a name or a face just came to mind without you even trying, drop the number 333 in the comments right now. Let that be your declaration that you are awake, that you are aware, and that you are choosing to stand in the discernment God has given you. You are not going into this moment unprepared. You are going in covered, equipped, and chosen. The unease you felt in that last moment, that quiet knowing that something is approaching, has a name in the kingdom of God. It is called wisdom. And wisdom is not something you stumble into accidentally. Wisdom is something that is given, cultivated, and protected by the hand of a God who understands exactly what you are going to face before you ever see it coming. The Bible does not treat wisdom as a bonus feature for the spiritually advanced. The Bible treats wisdom as a survival tool, as a weapon, as the very foundation upon which a life of purpose and protection is built. And right now, in this season of your life, wisdom is the single most important thing you can carry into the conversation that is forming around you. There is a verse that has been echoing in the chambers of heaven over your life in this very season. It comes from the book of Proverbs, chapter 4, verse 7, and it says this: "Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding." Read those words again slowly. Wisdom is the principal thing, not money, not influence, not the approval of the people around you, not the ability to charm your way through difficult rooms. Wisdom. It is the first thing, the chief thing, the thing above all other things that a chosen one must pursue if they are going to walk through this life without being derailed by the schemes of those who do not carry their best interest at heart. And God is placing that word directly in front of you today because He knows what is coming, and He knows that wisdom is the only shield strong enough to withstand it. You have been through seasons where you made decisions based on emotion, where the weight of someone's tears was enough to move you, where the history you shared with a person felt like an obligation that outweighed your own sense of peace, where the fear of being seen as cold or unhelpful or selfish pushed you into agreements that cost you more than you ever expected to pay. Those seasons were not failures. They were classrooms. Every time you said yes when everything in you was saying no, you were learning something about the price of ignoring wisdom. Every time you overrode your own discernment because you did not want to disappoint someone, you were adding a chapter to an education that God is now asking you to graduate from. You have paid enough tuition in the school of misplaced loyalty. It is time to walk in what you have learned. Wisdom does not always arrive with a dramatic sign. Sometimes wisdom arrives as a slight hesitation before you respond to a message. Sometimes wisdom arrives as a feeling in your stomach when a particular topic is raised in conversation. Sometimes wisdom arrives as the inability to sleep because something your mind registered during the day does not line up with what your spirit knows to be true. These are not glitches. These are not signs of overthinking. These are the movements of a God who is trying to communicate with you through the very faculties He created inside you. Your body knows things your conscious mind has not yet processed. Your spirit carries information that your logic cannot always explain. And when those signals arise, the wisest thing you can do is slow down, get quiet, and listen. The enemy understands the power of rushed decisions. He understands that a chosen one who is given time to think, time to pray, time to consult the wisdom of God, will almost always make the right call. So the strategy is always to create urgency. The request that is coming will likely carry a deadline. It will likely come packaged with language like "I need to know now," or "this cannot wait," or "you are the only one who can help me." That urgency is not an accident. It is engineered. It is designed to compress the space between the request and your response so that wisdom does not have room to enter the conversation. But you are wiser than that now. You have been through enough to know that anything requiring you to bypass your peace in order to decide is something that deserves your most careful and unhurried attention. And this is where the story of one of the most remarkable figures in all of Scripture begins to speak directly into your moment. His name is Solomon, a king, a son, a man chosen by God before he ever wore a crown, marked for greatness in a way that even his own father David recognized and proclaimed. Solomon was not chosen because he was the strongest or the most aggressive or the most politically savvy. Solomon was chosen because when God appeared to him and offered him anything, absolutely anything his heart desired, Solomon asked for wisdom, not wealth, not the destruction of his enemies, not fame that would echo through generations. He asked for the ability to discern between good and evil, to lead with understanding, to know the difference between what appeared to be true and what actually was. And God was so moved by that request that He gave Solomon not only wisdom, but everything else alongside it. Because God knows that a person who walks in true wisdom will always find their way to provision, to protection, to purpose. Wisdom is the master key. It does not just open one door. It carries the ability to navigate every room, every corridor, every darkened hallway of human experience with clarity and grace. And Solomon's story is your story. Not because you are a king sitting on a physical throne in a physical palace, but because you are seated in a position of spiritual authority that the enemy has been trying to dislodge you from ever since you began to walk in your calling. Solomon understood something that took him years of experience to fully embody, and that is this: the most dangerous requests do not come from enemies. They come from those who stand closest to the throne. They come from those who have access, from those who know the inner workings of your life well enough to craft a request that speaks directly to your values, your compassion, your history of generosity. Solomon faced this reality repeatedly throughout his reign, and the moments when he listened to wisdom, the moments when he held his ground against the pressure of proximity, were the moments when his kingdom flourished and his legacy was secured. You are carrying a legacy right now. You may not see it in its fullness yet. You may still be in the middle chapters of a story whose ending has not yet been written on the pages of your visible life. But in the archives of heaven, your story is already complete. God has already seen the outcome. He has already witnessed the moment when you stood firm and said no to what was trying to consume you, and He has already witnessed what was released in your life as a result of that holy refusal. He is not worried about your outcome. He is simply asking you to trust the wisdom He has already placed inside you long enough to let it do its work. Do not be moved by the emotional weight of what is coming. Do not be moved by the history attached to the voice that will carry the request. Do not be moved by the appearance of need or the performance of urgency. Move instead from the place of wisdom that God has been building in you through every trial, every loss, every moment of painful clarity that felt like breaking but was actually becoming. You are not breaking. You have never been breaking. You have been becoming. And what you are becoming right now is a chosen one who walks in the kind of wisdom that cannot be bought, cannot be manipulated, and cannot be taken from you by anyone who approaches you with a hidden agenda wrapped in familiar words. Stay rooted. Stay quiet before you respond. Let wisdom have its full work in you before you open your mouth or move your hand or give access to what God has entrusted to your care. The kingdom inside you is worth protecting. The assignment ahead of you is worth guarding. And the God who gave you both is fully committed to making sure that what He started in you will not be interrupted by what is coming toward you. What Solomon discovered in the early years of his reign was not simply that wisdom made him smarter. It made him unreadable to those who intended to use him. There is a particular kind of protection that settles over a life that is governed by divine understanding, a kind of invisible armor that does not announce itself, but that causes every scheme launched against you to collapse before it can fully form. Solomon sat on his throne, and people came from every corner of the known world to bring him their problems, their disputes, their requests, their agendas. And because wisdom lived inside him like a resident fire, he could see through the surface of every conversation to the root of what was actually being asked. That is the gift God is activating in you right now. Not just the ability to hear words, but the ability to hear the intention behind the words. Not just the ability to see actions, but the ability to see the motivation beneath the actions. You have spent too long taking people at face value. You have spent too long giving the benefit of the doubt to those who had already revealed their character through a pattern of behavior you chose to overlook because you are, at your core, a person who wants to believe the best about others. That quality is not a flaw. That quality is actually one of the most beautiful things about you. The fact that your default setting is love, that your first instinct is to extend grace, that your heart reaches toward people before your guard goes up. These are not weaknesses to be ashamed of. They are reflections of the divine nature living inside you. But even the most beautiful qualities require the covering of wisdom, because without wisdom, love becomes a door left unlocked in a neighborhood that has not always treated you with the care you deserve. God is not asking you to become hard. He is not asking you to close your heart or to look at every person who enters your life through the lens of suspicion. What He is asking you to do is to become whole, to carry both the softness of love and the sharpness of discernment in the same hands at the same time, to be warm without being naive, to be generous without being exploitable, to be compassionate without being controllable. This is the wholeness that Solomon was moving toward in the best years of his reign, and this is the wholeness that God is cultivating in you right now in this very season. Think about the last time someone came to you with a request and something in you immediately tensed. Not because you are a suspicious person by nature, but because something in the spirit recognized a misalignment between what was being said and what was actually happening. You probably pushed that feeling down. You probably reasoned yourself out of it. You probably told yourself you were being unfair or unkind or overly cautious. And then, sometime later, you found out that your first instinct had been right all along. That tension you felt was not a character flaw. That tension was God speaking. That was wisdom trying to rise above the noise of your desire to be a good person, trying to get your attention before the cost became too high. And from this day forward, you are going to stop silencing that voice. You are chosen for this moment. Not chosen in a way that makes you superior to others, but chosen in the way that means heaven has specifically selected you for an assignment that requires the kind of spiritual depth that not everyone around you has been asked to carry. You were never meant to walk this road on the surface. You were always meant to go deep, deep into your relationship with God, deep into the understanding of your own identity, deep into the awareness of the spiritual forces that operate around the visible circumstances of your life. And that depth is what makes you valuable to the kingdom, and it is also what makes you a target to those who would rather have access to your anointing than develop their own. The people who are most likely to come to you with requests that carry hidden weight are not strangers. They are people who have watched you from close range. They have seen how you pray. They have seen how you show up for others. They have seen the way God moves in your life, and they have drawn a direct line between your faith and your favor. And somewhere in their own unresolved places, they have decided that the fastest route to what they need runs directly through you. This is not always a conscious decision. Sometimes people do not even realize they are using others. Sometimes the wounding inside a person is so deep that manipulation becomes their only known language for getting needs met. But whether it is conscious or unconscious, the effect on your life is the same. And wisdom calls you to respond not to the method, but to the reality. The reality is that your yes is one of the most powerful things you carry. When you agree to something, you are not just making a practical decision. You are opening a spiritual gate. You are creating access. You are inviting something into your atmosphere. And this is why God is so careful about what He asks you to agree to in this season, and why the enemy is equally careful about crafting requests that sound reasonable enough to get past your defenses. Every yes you give carries weight. Every agreement you make has consequences that extend beyond the visible into the invisible. This is not meant to make you afraid to say yes to anything. It is meant to make you intentional about what you open your life to and who you give access to the sacred spaces of your calling. You are building something. Even if you cannot see the full structure yet, even if the blueprint is still being revealed to you one piece at a time, you are building something in the spirit that has eternal significance. And everything that God has been walking you through, every test, every transition, every moment of letting go, and every season of waiting has been construction work on something that the enemy is desperate to interrupt before it reaches completion. The request that is coming is not just about whatever practical thing is being asked of you on the surface. It is a strategic move in a much larger game, and you need to see it for what it is before you respond. So stay here. Stay in this place of awareness. Stay in this place of divine alertness where you are neither paralyzed by fear nor lulled into carelessness. You are right in the middle of a moment that God has been preparing you for, and He did not bring you this far to watch you hand away what He has so carefully built inside you. He brought you here to demonstrate to yourself and to the watching spiritual world around you that a chosen one who walks in wisdom is untouchable by the schemes that have been designed to derail them. If this message is finding you at a moment when you know, somewhere deep inside, that you are standing at a crossroads like this, if you feel the weight of a decision approaching or the pressure of a request already beginning to form in the people around you, then let this be the moment you draw a line. Let this be the moment you decide that your peace is worth protecting, that your purpose is worth guarding, and that your yes will never again be given away under pressure or manipulation or the guilt of unearned obligation. And if this word is speaking to your life today, if it is landing somewhere real and specific inside your chest, share this message with someone who needs to hear it. You never know whose life is standing at the same crossroads and who might be saved from a costly mistake simply because you were generous enough to pass this along. There are people in your circle right now who are being approached with the same kind of weighted request, wrapped in the same kind of familiar packaging, and they do not yet have the language to name what they are sensing. You sharing this message could be the divine interruption that gives them that language before it is too late. That is not a small thing. That is kingdom work. That is you functioning as the chosen one you were always created to be, not just receiving wisdom for yourself, but becoming a conduit of it for others. If this channel has been a place of clarity and spiritual nourishment for you, consider subscribing so that you never miss a message that was crafted specifically with your journey in mind. And if you feel led to sow into the work of this ministry, the link to do so is in the description and pinned in the comments below. Every seed sown into ground like this carries a harvest that returns in ways you cannot yet imagine. You are loved, you are covered, and you are walking in exactly the direction God intended. There is something God places in the hands of His chosen ones before the battle intensifies. It is not always a sword. It is not always a shield in the traditional sense. Sometimes it is a tool. Sometimes it is a resource. Sometimes it is something that looks ordinary on the outside but carries an extraordinary capacity to shift the internal landscape of a person who is preparing to face something significant. And in this season, before you walk into the conversation that is forming, before you face the request that is approaching, God wants your mind operating at its highest capacity. He wants your thoughts clear, your perception sharp, your ability to discern running at full strength. Because a clouded mind is a compromised mind, and a compromised mind is the enemy's greatest advantage. This is why what I am about to share with you matters deeply in the context of everything this message has been building toward. There is a program called the Genius Wave, created by Dr. James Rivers, a neuroscientist trained at MIT with over 30 years of dedicated research into the science of the human brain. What Dr. Rivers discovered through years of rigorous study, research connected to the work of scientists at NASA, is that there is a specific frequency of brain activity that exists in genius-level thinkers, in highly creative individuals, and remarkably, in young children who have not yet been conditioned out of their natural state of expansive thinking. That frequency is called the theta wave, operating between 4 and 8 Hz, and it is the brainwave state most associated with deep creativity, rapid learning, intuition, and the kind of mental clarity that allows a person to see through complexity to the truth underneath it. The very quality of mind that a chosen one needs most in a season of spiritual warfare. The Genius Wave is a 7-minute audio program that uses a scientifically designed combination of binaural beats and isochronic tones to guide your brain gently and naturally into that theta state. You do not need to meditate for hours. You do not need specialized training or any particular skill. You simply listen, and the precisely calculated sound frequencies do the work of synchronizing your brain waves to the frequency of heightened clarity and creative power. 7 minutes a day. That is all. And in those 7 minutes, something shifts in your mental landscape that carries forward into every decision, every conversation, every moment of discernment you are called to exercise throughout your day. More than 19,000 people have already experienced this program, and the return rate sits below 4%. which means that the overwhelming majority of people who engage with it find genuine, measurable value in what it delivers. The official link to access the Genius Wave is in the description of this video and pinned in the comments below. Please be careful of imitations and unauthorized sources. Only use the official link to ensure you are receiving the authentic program. The investment is $39, and it comes with a 90-day full money-back guarantee. If you do not experience what you came for, you pay nothing. That is how confident the creators are in what this program delivers. And for a chosen one standing at the threshold of one of the most important decisions of their season, the clarity this tool provides is not a luxury. It is preparation. Now, having said that, let the narration return to where it truly lives, because the most important upgrade happening in your life right now is not in the frequency of sound. It is in the frequency of your spirit. It is in the deep interior rewiring that God has been performing in you through every season you have walked through, and it is in the alignment that is now settling over your life like a mantle being, draped across shoulders that have finally grown strong enough to carry the weight of it. The tool is a gift for the mind, but what God is doing goes far deeper than the mind. He is working in the marrow of your identity. He is rearranging the very foundations of how you see yourself, how you see your value, and how you understand your right to protect what He has placed inside you. Solomon understood this kind of deep interior knowing. He understood that the wisdom God gave him was not simply an intellectual enhancement. It was a spiritual state. It was a condition of the inner man that allowed him to operate in a realm of perception that others simply did not have access to. When two women came before him, both claiming to be the mother of the same child, Solomon did not consult advisors. He did not run a lengthy investigation. He did not deliberate for days. He acted from a place of deeply rooted interior knowing, a wisdom so complete that it could read the human heart in real time and respond in a way that revealed truth without destroying what was true. That is the level of perception God is cultivating in you right now. You are being taken deeper, deeper into the place where you know without being told, deeper into the place where your spirit registers misalignment before your mind can articulate it, deeper into the place where you are so anchored in your identity and your calling that no request, however cleverly constructed, however emotionally loaded, however wrapped in the language of need and urgency, can move you out of your peace. That place is not a destination you arrive at once and stay in forever without effort. It is a practice. It is a daily returning to the source of your wisdom, a daily commitment to choosing clarity over comfort and truth over the temporary relief of giving people what they want from you. The enemy knows that a chosen one who is mentally sharp, spiritually grounded, and emotionally whole is nearly impossible to manipulate. So the strategy is always to keep you depleted, to keep you in a state of low-grade exhaustion where your discernment is dulled and your boundaries are soft and your desire for peace makes you more likely to give a quick yes than to sit with the discomfort of holding a firm no. He wants you tired. He wants you distracted. He wants you operating from the surface of yourself rather than from the depths where wisdom lives. And this is why every tool, every practice, every resource that brings you back to clarity and groundedness is an act of spiritual warfare in itself. You taking care of your mind is not selfishness. You protecting your peace is not unkindness. You choosing to operate from a place of sharpness and discernment rather than from a place of depletion and guilt is not a betrayal of the people who need you. It is the most responsible thing a chosen one can do, because a vessel that is depleted cannot pour, a mind that is foggy cannot discern, a spirit that is worn thin cannot carry the weight of the assignments heaven is placing on it. When you are whole, when you are clear, when you are operating from the fullness of what God placed inside you, You become genuinely useful to the kingdom in a way that no amount of exhausted compliance could ever replicate. So receive this as permission. Permission to take care of the mind God gave you. Permission to guard the clarity that your discernment depends on. Permission to show up for the season ahead not depleted and reactive but sharp and intentional and fully present to the wisdom that God has been depositing in you across every chapter of your story. You are not going into what is coming underprepared. You are going in as a chosen one who has been equipped by heaven and who has chosen to steward that equipping with the seriousness it deserves. What is coming toward you does not stand a chance against the version of you that is fully awake, fully grounded, and fully covered by the wisdom of the God who chose you before you were ever formed. There is a moment in every chosen one's journey where the preparation stops feeling like preparation and starts feeling like pressure, where the refinement that God has been performing in the hidden places of your life begins to intensify in a way that makes you wonder if something has gone wrong, if you have somehow missed a step, if the discomfort you are feeling is a sign of failure rather than a sign of forward movement. But beloved, pressure is not punishment. Pressure is the fingerprint of a God who trusts you enough to put weight on what He has built inside you because He knows it will hold. He would not press on something He was not certain about. He would not allow the heat to increase around a vessel He had not already tested and found faithful. The pressure you are feeling right now is not a sign that you are losing. It is a sign that you are about to win something significant, and the enemy knows it before you do. Solomon knew pressure. He knew what it felt like to sit in a position of authority that carried the weight of thousands of lives, thousands of decisions, thousands of competing requests all pressing in at once. He knew what it meant to be the person that everyone turned to, the one everyone needed, the one whose yes could change a life and whose no could end an era. And in the middle of all of that weight, Solomon returned again and again to the foundation that had made him who he was. He returned to wisdom, not as a concept, not as a theological idea to be admired from a distance, but as a living, breathing, daily practice of choosing to see clearly even when emotion was pressuring him to see what people wanted him to see rather than what was actually there. There is a verse in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 5, that carries a promise so direct and so generous that it almost seems too simple to be true. It says, "If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him." Read those words and let them settle into the places inside you that have been carrying the weight of uncertainty. If you lack wisdom, ask. Not if you deserve wisdom, not if you have earned wisdom through sufficient suffering or enough correct decisions. Simply if you lack it. And the God who gives liberally, who does not measure out wisdom in careful portions designed to keep you dependent, but who pours it out without reproach, without making you feel foolish for needing it, will give it to you. That is the nature of the God you serve. He is not stingy with what you need most in your most vulnerable moments. And this is the promise that Solomon built his entire legacy upon. He asked and God gave, not partially, not conditionally, liberally. And the wisdom that came did not just make Solomon a better thinker. It made him a better seer. It gave him the ability to look at the landscape of his life and the lives of those around him and perceive the currents moving beneath the surface, the hidden motivations, the unspoken agendas, the carefully constructed performances designed to gain his favor or access his resources. Solomon could see through the presentation to the person. And that ability, that God-given capacity to perceive what is real rather than what is performed, is exactly what you need right now. Because the person who is approaching you with this request has prepared. They have thought through what to say. They have considered your likely objections and prepared responses to them. They have constructed a version of the conversation that sounds reasonable, that appeals to your values, that uses the language of your shared history to create a sense of obligation. They have done their work, and the only thing that can see through the work of a well-prepared manipulator is the wisdom of a God who sees all things. Not your cleverness, not your experience, not your ability to read people based on past encounters. The pure, unadulterated wisdom of a God who was watching when the plan was being formed before a single word of it was ever spoken in your direction. This is why prayer is not optional in your current season. This is why the daily returning to the presence of God is not a religious routine, but a strategic necessity. Every time you sit quietly before Him, every time you open the lines of communication between your spirit and His, you are downloading intelligence that no human source could provide. You are receiving information about your situation that exists above, the level of what your natural senses can gather. You are being briefed by the one who sits outside of time and sees the end from the beginning. And that briefing is what allows a chosen one to walk into a potentially devastating conversation and come out on the other side not just unharmed but elevated. Think about what Solomon's wisdom cost those who came to him with hidden agendas. It cost them everything. Every scheme that was laid before him was dismantled not through aggression or retaliation, but through the simple, devastating power of clear seeing. When you see clearly, manipulation loses its power instantly. It has no darkness to hide in. It has no confusion to operate through. It cannot function in the light of genuine wisdom. And the moment the person approaching you realizes that their carefully constructed request is being seen for exactly what it is, something shifts. The dynamic changes. The power in the room redistributes. And suddenly, you are no longer the one being approached with a request. You are the one holding the discernment that determines the outcome. You need to understand what is at stake in this moment. Not in a way that generates fear, but in a way that generates holy intentionality. What is being targeted through this request is not just your time or your money or your practical resources. What is being targeted is your momentum, your peace, your forward movement into the next chapter of what God has prepared for your life. Because the enemy understands, even if the person carrying the request does not fully understand, that if he can get you to say yes to the wrong thing right now, he can slow your progress in ways that will take you seasons to recover from. He is not after what you have right now. He is after what you are about to step into. And this request is designed to be a detour that looks like a destination. But you are too wise for that now. You have been in enough detours to recognize the feeling of one forming around you. You have paid enough tuition in the school of misplaced agreements to know what an unwise yes costs you on the other side. And you have walked long enough with God to know that the things He is calling you toward are worth protecting with every ounce of discernment He has placed inside you. So hold your ground. Stay in wisdom. Keep your spirit quiet enough to hear what God is saying beneath the noise of what people are asking. The answer you give to what is coming will not just affect this season. It will set a trajectory for everything that follows. And the God who has been preparing you for this moment is fully confident that, when you stand in the wisdom He has given you, you will choose correctly. Stay anchored. Stay rooted. Stay in the place where wisdom lives, which is always, without exception, in the presence of the God who gives it liberally to those who ask. You asked, even before you knew you were asking, every time you cried out in a season of confusion, every time you begged God to help you see clearly, every time you said, "Lord, I do not want to make the wrong decision again." He heard every one of those prayers, and He has been answering them, layer by layer, season by season, building in you a foundation of wisdom that is now ready to hold the weight of what is coming. The weight of what God has been building in you does not exist in isolation. It exists in the context of a community, a body of people who are walking through similar seasons, carrying similar pressures, facing similar crossroads where the wrong yes could cost them everything, and the right no could open a door that changes the entire trajectory of their lives. You are not alone in this. You have never been alone in this. And one of the most powerful things you can do in a season of spiritual intensity like the one you are currently navigating is to stay connected to voices that are speaking the same language your spirit is already hearing in the quiet places. Because isolation is one of the enemy's most effective strategies against a chosen one. He knows that a person who is disconnected from community, from consistent, spiritual nourishment, from the reinforcement of truth spoken over their life on a regular basis, is a person who is far more vulnerable to the kind of manipulation that is currently being aimed at you. Solomon did not build his kingdom alone. Even in his wisdom, even in his God-given clarity, he surrounded himself with counsel. He created structures of accountability and community around the exercise of his authority, because he understood something that many gifted people take too long to learn, which is that even the most anointed among us were never designed to carry our assignments in isolation. The very nature of kingdom work is communal. The very nature of spiritual warfare is that it is fought more effectively in formation than it is fought alone. When David faced Goliath, the army of Israel was behind him. When Elijah sat under the juniper tree in despair, God sent both nourishment and a companion. When Jesus walked into the most intense season of his earthly ministry, he gathered 12 around him to walk the road. Together, community is not a comfort option for the spiritually mature. It is a divine design for the spiritually serious. And yet the enemy will always try to convince you that your situation is too unique, too complicated, too spiritually layered for anyone else to truly understand. He will whisper that the people around you cannot relate to what you are going through. He will use the distance of past misunderstandings to keep you from reaching toward present connection. He will use your previous experiences of being burned by community to justify a self-protective isolation that he then leverages against you by removing the voices that would otherwise speak wisdom into your most vulnerable moments. Do not let him have that ground. The ground of your community is sacred, and surrendering it costs you more than you can afford to pay in a season like this one. Think about the moments in your own life when a single conversation changed everything. When someone spoke a word over you that landed in exactly the right place at exactly the right time, and something shifted inside you that had been stuck for longer than you wanted to admit. That did not happen by accident. That was God using the voice of another person to reach a part of you that he could not get to through your own inner dialogue because you had been talking yourself out of the truth for too long. Sometimes the wisdom God wants to deliver to you comes through community. Sometimes the confirmation you need for the decision you are facing comes through a message like this one that finds you in the middle of a moment when you most need to hear it. And that is why staying connected matters so deeply in a season of warfare. There is something God is asking you to do right now that costs you almost nothing, but carries a return that extends far beyond what you can calculate. Share this message, not because this channel needs the numbers, but because you already know someone whose name has been floating in your mind since this message began. Someone who is standing at their own crossroads. Someone who is facing their own version of this weighted request. Someone who is trying to talk themselves into a yes that every part of their spirit is begging them to reconsider. You sharing this message with that person is not a small act. In the economy of heaven, it is an act of profound love. It is you functioning as the instrument of divine interruption in someone else's life, the same way this message has been an interruption in yours today. The people God has placed in your world are not there by accident. Just as you were not guided to this message by accident, the people in your circle are connected to you by divine design. Some of them are there to pour into you. Some of them are there for you to pour into. And some of them are there for both, in a reciprocal exchange of wisdom and love and spiritual covering that strengthens everyone involved. When you share something that has genuinely helped you, you are not just being generous. You are activating the network of purpose that God designed around your life. You are strengthening the web of divine connection that makes the whole community more resilient against the strategies of an enemy who thrives on division and isolation. If this channel has been a consistent source of spiritual grounding for you, if these messages have found you at moments when you needed them most, then let this be the moment you make it official. Subscribe so that what God continues to release through this space finds its way to you without interruption. Like this video as an act of agreement with the truth that has been spoken. And if you feel led to support the work that makes these messages possible, the link to sow into this ministry is in the description and pinned in the comments below. Your generosity does not just keep this work going. It multiplies back to you in ways that only God can orchestrate, because you cannot outgive a God whose resources are without limit and whose faithfulness to those who honor His work is without exception. You are part of something larger than your individual story. Your journey, your struggles, your victories, your discernment, your wisdom, all of it is woven into a tapestry that God is using to demonstrate His faithfulness to a generation that desperately needs to see it. Every time you choose wisdom over pressure, every time you protect your peace against the weight of someone else's agenda, every time you say no to what was sent to derail you and yes to what God has actually called you toward, you are writing a chapter in a story that encourages someone else to do the same. That is the power of a chosen one who stays connected, who stays visible, who refuses to retreat into isolation when the warfare intensifies. Stay in community. Stay in the flow of anointing that God has established around your life. Stay connected to the voices that speak life and truth and clarity into your spirit on a consistent basis. Because the conversation that is forming around you, the request that is approaching, the moment of decision that is drawing closer with every passing day, all of it is better navigated from within a community of people who are praying, who are discerning, who are choosing wisdom, and who are fully committed to seeing you walk into everything that God has prepared for you on the other side of this season. You were never meant to face this alone, and you do not have to. There is a silence that comes before the most significant moments of a chosen one's life. Not the silence of absence, not the silence of abandonment, but the silence of preparation. The kind of silence that falls over a field just before the rain breaks through. The kind of silence that fills a room just before something holy enters it. You may have been living in that silence recently. You may have mistaken it for God going quiet, for heaven pulling back, for the anointing lifting from your life in some way you could not explain. But that is not what has been happening. What has been happening is that God has been drawing you into the deepest place of your spirit, past the noise of your circumstances, past the clamor of other people's opinions and expectations, past the static of your own fears and second-guessing, into a place of such profound stillness that when He speaks, there is nothing left to compete with His voice. Solomon knew this silence. There was a season in his reign where the weight of everything he was carrying, the kingdom, the temple he was building for God, the alliances he was managing, the thousands of people whose lives depended on the quality of his decisions, all of it created a kind of internal pressure that could have easily fragmented a lesser man. But Solomon had something that kept him anchored even in the most complex seasons of his leadership. He had a practice of returning to God, not just in the grand moments of public worship, not just in the ceremonial occasions that required his presence before the altar, but in the ordinary rhythms of his life. He carried the awareness of God's nearness the way he carried his own heartbeat, as something so constant and so fundamental that to be without it would be to cease to exist as the person he was created to be. And it was in one of those returning moments that God spoke something to Solomon that reframed everything he thought he understood about the nature of his own protection. It is found in the second book of Chronicles, chapter 7, verse 14, and it carries a word that is as alive today as it was in the moment it was first spoken. God said, If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. 4 conditions. 1 promise. Humble yourself, pray, seek his face, turn from what is not of him. And when those 4 things are in place, heaven opens, forgiveness flows, healing comes. Not healing as a distant future possibility, but healing as a present, active, tangible reality that touches the very ground you are standing on. This word is not just about national restoration, though it carries that dimension. This word is about the personal land of your life, the territory of your peace, the ground of your calling, the soil of your relationships and your decisions and your daily walk with a God who sees everything and responds to humility with heaven-splitting intervention. When you humble yourself before him, when you do not come with your own agenda for how the situation should resolve, but with an open hand and an open spirit ready to receive whatever he determines is best, something breaks open in the atmosphere around you that nothing else can produce. Humility is not weakness. Humility is the posture that gives God full permission to move in your situation without the resistance of your own will fighting against his. And this is exactly where the request that is approaching you requires the most careful spiritual attention. Because the temptation in a moment like this is not just to say yes out of manipulation or guilt. The temptation is also to say yes out of pride. To say yes because you want to appear generous. To say yes because you do not want the person to think less of you. To say yes because deep down there is a part of you that still measures your worth by how useful you are to the people around you, by how readily available you make yourself to those who need something from you. That kind of yes is not an act of love. That kind of yes is an act of self-preservation dressed in the costume of generosity. And God is calling you higher than that. He is calling you into the place of such security in your identity that your decisions are no longer made from the need to be seen a certain way, but from the deep, settled knowing of who you are and what you have been called to protect. Solomon faced this exact temptation repeatedly. There were moments when the politically expedient thing, the thing that would have maintained alliances and kept peace on the surface, would have been to give people what they were asking for regardless of what wisdom said about the request. And in the moments when Solomon yielded to that temptation, in the seasons when he allowed the desire for external approval to override the internal compass of wisdom, the consequences were visible and lasting. The alliances he formed out of convenience rather than conviction became the very channels through which compromise entered his kingdom. The relationships he maintained out of obligation rather than genuine divine alignment became the doorways through which his most significant spiritual vulnerabilities were exploited. Solomon's story is not just inspiring, it is instructive. It is a map of what happens when a chosen one trades the clarity of God's wisdom for the comfort of human approval. You cannot afford that trade right now. The season you are in is too important. The assignment ahead of you is too significant. The legacy that God is building through your life is too precious to be compromised by a yes that was given under the pressure of needing to be liked, or needing to be seen as good, or needing to avoid the discomfort of someone's disappointment. You are secure enough in God to let people be disappointed. You are grounded enough in your identity to withstand the momentary tension of holding a boundary that protects your calling. You are loved enough by the God who chose you to trust that his opinion of you does not shift based on whether you meet someone else's demands. The humility God is calling you into in this season is not the humility of shrinking. It is the humility of surrender to his wisdom over your own comfort. It is the humility of saying, God, I do not know all the dimensions of this situation, but you do. And I am choosing to move from what you know rather than from what I feel. That posture, that daily returning to seek his face rather than the face of human approval, is What kept Solomon's best seasons characterized by a wisdom that left everyone who witnessed it breathless. And it is what will carry you through this crossroads with your integrity intact, your calling secured, and your peace unbroken. Seek His face in this. Not just once, not just in the moment the request arrives, but now, before it comes, in the stillness of this moment while you still have space to hear clearly. Lay the situation before Him with open hands. Ask Him to show you what is beneath the surface of what is being asked. Ask Him to give you the words you need when the moment arrives. Ask Him to fortify your spirit with the kind of unshakable clarity that no amount of emotional pressure can dislodge. He will answer. He always answers the one who comes with humility and a genuine desire to walk in truth. You are that person. You have always been that person. And in this moment, as in every moment before it, God is fully committed to making sure that you have everything you need to walk forward in the fullness of what He created you to carry. Every chosen one reaches a moment where the internal work they have been doing in the hidden places of their life is suddenly called to show up in the visible world, where the wisdom cultivated in the quiet, the boundaries built in the seasons of painful learning, the discernment sharpened through years of prayer and pressing and choosing God's voice over the noise of everything else, where all of that suddenly has to translate into a real decision made in real time with real consequences. This is that moment for you, not a hypothetical moment, not a future possibility you can afford to prepare for later. This is the moment you have been in all along, and everything that has been spoken over you in this message has been preparation for what you are about to do with the request that is already forming in your atmosphere. You have been building toward this. Every section of this message has been laying a foundation stone by stone, wisdom upon wisdom, truth upon truth, so that when you arrive at this place you are not arriving empty. You are arriving full of discernment, full of clarity, full of the unshakable knowing that a chosen one who walks in God's wisdom is never at the mercy of someone else's agenda. And now, in this section, the message shifts from preparation to activation, because preparation without activation is just information. And God did not bring you to this word just to inform you. He brought you here to transform you, to move something in you from the place of knowing into the place of doing, from the place of understanding into the place of standing, from the place of wisdom received into the place of wisdom exercised. The book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 9 says this, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." These are not gentle suggestions. These are commands from a God who understood that the person He was speaking to was standing at the edge of a territory that required everything they had been given in preparation to now be deployed in action. Joshua had spent years under Moses, years of watching, learning, absorbing the wisdom and the ways of a God who moved mountains and parted seas and provided bread from heaven. And after all of that preparation, the moment came when God looked at Joshua and said, "Enough watching. It is time to move. It is time to be strong. It is time to step into the territory that has been prepared for you, and to do it without fear, and without the kind of discouragement that causes a chosen one to hesitate at the very threshold of their breakthrough." That word is landing on you right now with the same force it landed on Joshua in that ancient moment. Be strong. Not because the situation is simple, not because the request that is coming carries no emotional weight, not because walking in wisdom is always comfortable or clean or free from the complexity of human relationship. Be strong because the Lord your God is with you. Be strong because the same God who has been speaking to you through every section of this message, who has been building wisdom in you through every season of your life, who has been watching over your assignment since before you were born, is standing with you in this exact moment and in every moment that follows. You do not face what is coming alone. You face it covered, commissioned, and commanded to be strong. Solomon's greatest moments of strength were not the ones that looked powerful from the outside. They were the quiet, interior moments where he chose wisdom over convenience, truth over approval, and the long view of legacy over the short-term comfort of giving people what they wanted. Every time he made that choice, something was secured in his kingdom that could not have been secured any other way. Every time he held the line of wisdom against the pressure of proximity and politics and the emotional weight of human need, he was building something in the spirit that outlasted every circumstance that threatened it. And every time you make that choice, you are doing the same. You are building something in the spirit that is more durable than any situation the enemy can construct around you. The request that is approaching you is not just a test of your boundaries. It is a test of your identity. It is a question being posed to you by forces both seen and unseen. Do you know who you are? Do you know what you carry? Do you know that your yes is sacred and your no is holy, and that the God who placed those capacities in you is fully capable of defending you against any fallout that comes from using them wisely? Because the enemy is counting on you not knowing. He is counting on the version of you that still needs external validation to feel secure. He is counting on the part of you that measures your worth by your usefulness to others. He is counting on the guilt that rises when someone you care about is disappointed by your refusal. And every one of those vulnerabilities is exactly what the request has been designed to target. But you are not that version of yourself anymore. You have been listening to this message, and something has been shifting in you with every word. Something has been settling deeper and standing firmer and rising higher in your spirit with every truth that has been spoken. You are not the person who says yes out of fear. You are not the person who shrinks under the weight of someone else's expectation. You are not the person who trades their peace for the temporary comfort of keeping the peace. You are a chosen one, marked by God, covered by wisdom, strengthened by every season you have walked through, and you are fully equipped to face what is coming with the kind of clarity that leaves no room for manipulation to take root. Right now, in this moment, before you move another step forward, take a breath and let the truth of who you are settle all the way down into your bones. You are not a victim of this situation. You are the anointed one in it. You are not at the mercy of the request that is coming. You are the one who holds the discernment that determines the outcome. You are not powerless in the face of someone else's need or agenda, or carefully constructed emotional appeal. You are powerful with the power of a God who has never lost a battle, and who has never abandoned a chosen one who chose to stand in his wisdom. If this word has been landing in your spirit today, if something in you has been saying yes to every truth spoken in this message, then let that yes find an expression right now. Type the words "I am ready" in the comments below, not as a performance, not as a formula, but as a declaration from the deepest place of your being that you have received what was sent to you today, that you are standing in the wisdom of God, and that what is coming toward you does not have the power to move you from the place where He has established you. Let those words be your anchor. Let them be your declaration. Let them be the moment you look the approaching situation in the eye and say, "I see you, I know what you are, and I am choosing God's wisdom over your pressure every single time." Because that is who you are. That is who you have always been. And that is who you will continue to be on the other side of everything that is trying to test you right now. There is something that happens on the other side of a holy no that nobody warns you about. People talk about the courage it takes to say no. They talk about the boundaries you must build and the wisdom you must walk in and the discernment you must exercise. But very few people talk about what happens after. What happens in the hours and days that follow when you have stood firm, when you have held your ground, when you have looked at a request that was designed to move you and chosen to remain unmoved. Because what happens after is not always the immediate peace and clarity that you were expecting. Sometimes what happens after is a season of questioning, a season of second guessing, A season where the silence that follows your no feels heavier than the noise that preceded it, and the enemy uses that silence to plant seeds of doubt about whether you made the right decision. This is the part of the journey that Solomon navigated in the deepest and most private chambers of his experience. The part that the public record of his wisdom does not always capture, because it happened in the interior of a man who was carrying more than any single human being, was designed to carry without the constant covering of divine connection. Solomon knew what it felt like to make a decision from the place of wisdom, and then to sit with the aftermath of that decision, while the world around him processed what he had done. He knew what it felt like to hold a boundary that confused the people who had come expecting access, and to watch their confusion turn to pressure, and to feel that pressure pressing against the walls of his resolve in the quiet hours when the throne room was empty and the advisors had gone home, and it was just him and the God who had given him the wisdom in the first place. And in those moments, Solomon returned to something he had written, words that had come from the deepest place of his own encounter with divine truth, words that carried a weight beyond mere poetry or philosophy, words that were and remain a living record of a chosen one wrestling with the gap between what wisdom requires and what the human heart finds comfortable. He wrote in the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verses 5 and 6, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Trust with all your heart, not with part of your heart, not with the part that has already figured things out and feels confident. With all of it, including the part that is afraid, including the part that is second-guessing, including the part that is sitting with the discomfort of a decision that cost you something even if it was the right decision." Leaning not on your own understanding does not mean ignoring what you know. It does not mean pretending that the discernment God gave you is not real, or that the wisdom he has been building in you through every season of your life is suddenly irrelevant. It means recognizing that your understanding, as refined as it has become, as sharpened as it is by years of walking with God and learning from the painful consequences of unwise decisions, is still partial. It is still limited. It still sees in part and knows in part and perceives in part. But God sees the whole. God knows the whole. God perceives not just this moment, but every moment that follows from it, every door that opens because you said no, every blessing that is now free to reach you because you refuse to let the wrong thing occupy the space it was designed to fill. And this is the part of the journey that requires the deepest trust. Not the trust of the dramatic moment when you are holding the line and the adrenaline of spiritual clarity is carrying you forward, but the trust of the quiet aftermath, the trust of the days that follow when you cannot yet see what your no has made possible, when the person you said no to has gone quiet and you do not know if they are processing your boundary or plotting their next approach, when the situation that seemed so clear in the moment of decision now looks slightly more ambiguous in the rearview mirror of reflection, when the enemy is whispering his most seductive questions. What if you were wrong? What if you misread the situation? What if your discernment was actually your own fear dressed up in spiritual language? These are the moments that separate the chosen ones who fulfill their assignment from those who come close but turn back at the final threshold. Because the enemy cannot take the wisdom God has given you. He cannot remove the anointing from your life. He cannot change what God has spoken over you or alter the trajectory that heaven has established for your journey. But he can whisper, and his whispers are most effective in the silence that follows a courageous decision, because that is when your guard is most likely to be lowered, when the intensity of the moment has passed, and the exhaustion of having stood firm begins to settle in, and the desire for resolution makes you vulnerable to a revisiting of what you already decided. Do not revisit it, not because the decision was made in haste, not because you are unwilling to receive correction from God if correction is genuinely needed, but because you did not make this decision hastily. You made it from a place of deep, cultivated, prayer-soaked wisdom that has been developed over years of walking closely with a God who does not lead his chosen ones astray. You made it from the place that Solomon returned to again and again throughout his reign. You made it from the place that James promised would be supplied generously and without reproach to anyone who asked. You asked. God answered. You moved from his answer. And now the work is to trust that what he set in motion through your obedience is unfolding even in the silence, even in the waiting, even in the season where you cannot yet see the fruit of what you planted through your holy refusal. Because the fruit is coming. It is always coming for the one who chooses wisdom and holds the ground that God has given them. The path is being made straight even now, in the places you cannot yet see, in the rooms you have not yet entered, in the chapters of your story that have not yet been written into your visible experience. God is at work in the aftermath of your obedience in a way that is more comprehensive and more purposeful than anything you could engineer through a yes given under pressure. He is rerouting things. He is closing doors that would have led to seasons of painful recovery. He is opening doors that only became available because you refused to let the wrong thing occupy your agreement. He is repositioning people and provisions and opportunities in a way that aligns perfectly with the assignment he placed on your life before the foundations of the earth were laid. This is what trust looks like in its most mature and most powerful form. Not the trust of the mountaintop where everything is clear and the presence of God is tangible and the confirmation is unmistakable, but the trust of the valley that follows the mountaintop, where the clarity is a memory rather than a present sensation, where the confirmation has been given but not yet fully seen in the physical world, where you are walking forward not because you can see the next step illuminated before you, but because you know the character of the God who told you to walk. That trust, the trust that holds in the silence and stands in the aftermath and refuses to be undone by the second-guessing whispers of an enemy who lost the moment you said no. That trust is the mark of a chosen one who has truly come into the fullness of their calling. You are there. You are in that place. And the God who brought you to it is not going to leave you in it without the evidence of his faithfulness catching up to your obedience in a way that makes everything you walk through worth it. Hold on. Stay steady. Keep trusting. The harvest of your holy no is closer than it looks from where you are standing right now. You have traveled far in this message, further than the words themselves might suggest. Because what has happened here is not merely that you have listened to a series of ideas strung together in a spiritually themed narrative. What has happened here is that heaven has been speaking directly into the core of your identity, dismantling the lies that made you vulnerable, reinforcing the truths that make you unshakable, and sealing something in your spirit that the enemy spent a very long time trying to prevent from being sealed. You came into this message as someone who sensed something approaching. You are leaving it as someone who knows exactly what that something is, where it comes from, what it is designed to do, and most importantly, what God has already equipped you to do about it. That is not a small thing. That is a divine transaction that took place in the invisible realm while you were simply listening, and the effects of it will continue to unfold in your life long after this message ends. Solomon's story does not end at the height of his wisdom, and neither does yours. Solomon's journey, like every chosen one's journey, moved through seasons of clarity and seasons of clouding, through moments of breathtaking obedience and moments of painful compromise. But what the totality of his story reveals is that God never abandoned him. Not in his greatest moment of wisdom, and not in his most vulnerable moment of failure. The covenant God made with Solomon was not contingent on Solomon being perfect. It was contingent on God being faithful. And the God who made that covenant with Solomon is the same God who has made a covenant with you. A covenant that says, I chose you before you chose me. A covenant that says my gifts and my calling over your life are without repentance, meaning they cannot be revoked by your mistakes or derailed by your seasons of weakness or canceled by the schemes of those who have tried to use you. You are in covenant with a God whose faithfulness does not fluctuate with your performance. And that covenant is what makes everything you have walked through not just survivable but meaningful. Every painful yes you gave when wisdom was saying no. Every season of recovery from a costly agreement. Every relationship that took more than it gave. Every request that left you depleted and questioning your own judgment. None of it was wasted. All of it was working toward this moment, this level of clarity, this depth of wisdom, this unshakable groundedness in the knowledge of who you are and whose you are. The enemy meant every one of those seasons for harm. God has been using every one of them for your formation. And the person you are right now, standing at this crossroads with your discernment sharp and your spirit settled and your identity secure, is the direct result of a God who never stopped working in you even in the seasons when you could not feel him working. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 29, verse 11 carries a word that has been spoken over chosen ones across every generation, and it lands today with the same power it carried the first time it was spoken. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. This is not a verse about comfort in the abstract. This is a declaration of divine intentionality over the specific details of your specific life. God knows the plans, not had, not will have, knows, present tense, active tense. The plans are alive right now, moving right now, working right now in the situation you are in the crossroads you are standing at, in the request that is approaching and the holy no that is rising in your spirit to meet it. The plans are to prosper you, to give you hope, to give you a future that is not determined by the schemes of those who approach you with hidden agendas, but by the sovereign, uninterruptible, unstoppable intention of a God who loved you enough to choose you before you ever had a chance to choose him. Let those words settle all the way down. Let them reach the places in you that are still carrying the weight of past decisions, past seasons, past moments when you gave your yes to something that cost you more than you knew. God's plans for you are not diminished by what you have been through. They are not derailed by what has been done to you or what you have done out of your own unhealed places. The plans are intact, the future is secured, the hope is real, and the God who declared it is standing watch over every word he has spoken to make absolutely certain that it comes to pass in your life. Now, before this message closes, there is something sacred to be done. There is a prayer that needs to be released over your life, and it is not a formula or a performance. It is a genuine, Spirit-led covering spoken over you in this moment from a place of deep love and profound faith in the God who brought you to this word for a reason. Receive it with an open heart. Father, I lift this chosen one before you right now. You know their name. You know the situation surrounding their life. You know the request that is forming and the person who is preparing to bring it. And I ask you, in the name of Jesus, to seal this chosen one in a wisdom that cannot be penetrated by manipulation, in a clarity that cannot be clouded by guilt, in an identity that cannot be shaken by the disappointment of those who wanted access to what you alone have the right to govern. Strengthen them in the place of their greatest vulnerability. Fortify their boundaries with the same power that parted the Red Sea and shut the mouths of lions and raised the dead. Let every scheme that has been designed against them collapse before it can fully form. And let the harvest of their holy no come quickly, visibly, and abundantly as evidence to them and to everyone watching their life that you are a God who defends those who walk in your wisdom. Cover them, Lord, keep them, and let everything you have planned for them come to pass without interruption. In Jesus' name, Amen. You are sealed, you are covered, you are chosen, not because you earned it, not because you have been perfect, not because your record is spotless or your faith has never wavered, but because before the foundations of this world were laid, A God who sees the end from the beginning looked across the full landscape of human history and pointed to you. He said, that is the one I am choosing for this moment, for this assignment for this generation. And nothing that has happened since that moment has changed his mind. Not your failures, not your seasons of compromise, not the requests you said yes to when you should have said no, not the relationships that cost you more than they gave. Nothing. His choice stands. His call is irrevocable. His plans for you are alive and active and moving forward with or without the permission of anyone who has ever tried to stand in the way of what he determined for your life. If this message has spoken to you today, if it has found the places in you that needed to be found, if something has shifted in your spirit in the course of this word, then let that shift be honored by a simple act. Like this video, as a declaration of agreement with the truth that has been spoken over your life today. Share it with the person whose name has been on your mind since the first section, because they need this word as much as you did, and your willingness to pass it along is itself an act of the wisdom that has been activated in you. Subscribe to this channel so that every message God releases through this space finds its way to you without interruption. And if you feel led to support the work that makes these messages possible, the link to sow into this ministry is in the description and pinned in the comments below. Your seed does not just sustain this work. It returns to you multiplied in ways that only a generous and faithful God could orchestrate. You are not leaving this message the same way you entered it. Something has been sealed in you. Something has been strengthened in you. Something has been spoken over you that will continue to reverberate through your spirit long after the sound of these words has faded. You are a chosen one. You have always been a chosen one. And the God who chose you is not finished with you yet. Your best days are not behind you. They are not even on the horizon. They are already unfolding in the realm of the Spirit, waiting for your feet to catch up to what your faith has already claimed. Walk toward them. Walk steady. Walk covered. Walk in the wisdom that God has been building in you across every season of your life. And walk knowing with the kind of knowing that goes all the way to the bone that you are loved, you are kept, you are chosen, and you are absolutely, irrevocably, unstoppably on your way to everything God promised you.